Hey everyone. Yesterday we've gotten the Lasswell Raegen banner featuring Infernal Fire Rain, obviously. And as you've seen, I've pulled Lasswell Raegen, so yeah. And I also used him in Dark Visions. So I like the unit very much so. And today, since I didn't really have much time yesterday, I'm also preparing for my exams, which start on February 8th. So yeah, I have to kind of plan a little bit ahead what to do and what to do when especially. So yeah, today we've got the banner review for Lasswell Raegen mainly. Infernal Fire Rain was small, just smaller role here. So yeah, let's get going right away, shall we? Okay, so as you can see on the left, Lasswell Raegen look like this. You've probably seen them already in my videos or played with them yourself. I hope you pulled for them. Yeah, the Trustmaster is a materia, 30% unconditional attack, and additional 40% if you're wearing a sword, and 40% if you're wearing a katana. The Super Trustmaster is a sword at 192 attack, 75% increased Dragon Killer physical, and 25% increased limit burst damage. Pretty good. The vision card called Thanks for Everything. At level 1 it has 40 base attack and 100 base HP. At level 10, 90 base attack and 200 base HP. The passives at level 4 and 7 are the same, 25 equipment attack when dual wielding, so 15 total. And at level 10 you get 20% more HP. Whoever needs that, right? So let's check out their abilities. Again, using the Japanese version, I prepared some of the slides earlier, so that's why I don't have the English names just yet. I will fix this once my exams are over and I can do this safely on a Thursday without having to manage time for university, basically. So bear with me just a couple more weeks. Okay, so as you can see, their Near Vision level up abilities. The top one is an Ice Attack at 41x with 50% defense ignore. It also fills LB gauge. On Absolute Mirror of Equity Chain, the second level ability, which has the icons for fire and water, which is kind of funny. I guess the second one, referring to this one, was the mouse over here. I guess this one also can apply to ice. It should be. I only know it's water from Mizu, which is water. So yeah, anyway, the second ability is imperiling the enemy, one enemy only, to fire and ice by 120%, and it also deals damage at 73x. And most of the abilities, as you can see, we've got the one below that, the father and son ability is not only refreshing MP, but it also is the 30% super high fire amplifier. It also mitigates damage taken by 60% for Dark Visions. Not so cool, the damage mitigation, but for trials, very cool. You're going to use this ability anyway. If you're going for a fire type kill, say Dark Visions final boss, you're probably gonna use fire. If it's going to be 130 imperiled anyway, might as well use the 30% fire amplifier, right? It also amplifies ice, by the way. So yeah, that's pretty good. And the rest of the abilities, pretty standard, right? 300% attack increase, 200 LB increase on one ability. On the other one, you have the 150% Dragon Killer, as well as damage mitigation towards dragons. 150 Dragon Killer to the whole party for 4 turns, and 15% damage mitigation to damage taken from dragons. Very cool. Their Grandes is unique on selection for uses per battle. Ice physical damage at 45x with 50% damage ignore. Don't sleep on the 50% damage ignore. That ability is going to hit hard. And it also imbues Lasswell Raegen by ice. And the last one, 47.5x with 50% damage ignore defense, available on turn 2. Again, this will hit hard. The passives, nothing too really serious. I mean, it shows already that these guys are super easy to gear. Just for an example, they have 50% base increase attack when you're equipping a sword. They have another 100% on the first ability, as you can see. Their base has, from this ability I'm hovering over right now, it's another 80%. They also have innate 50% fire ice resistance, which is cool. They also get 200 equipment attack when single wielding any weapon, but you're probably not gonna use them as true dual hands, because as you can see down here where my mouse is hovering over, they have the 200 modifier cap chain increase, meaning you should get them for true dual wield, so 2 one-handed swords, or not necessarily swords, but swords have the best things pretty much. There are multiple builds out there where you could use, for example, a katana and a sword to maximize not only upon their Trustmaster, but also on their passive abilities. As you can see, Great Sword and Katana boost attack by 50% each. Okay, and yeah, they do have the 70% increased damage towards broken enemies, but I do want to mention here again, we won't see this ability active because it's broken at the moment, and Gumi needs to update the client, and the client usually gets updated at the end of the month. We are past that, so yeah, we are looking at end of February to finally get the damage against broken enemies passive. That's Gumi for you. Oh, by the way, they also have 100% LB damage increase baseline as their passive. Let's check out their limit burst, brave shift, normal shift, normal form. Limit burst is a tag attack at 100x. It has it hits 24 times, so it's pretty comparable to Rain NVA, but it hits harder than Rain NVA pretty much, so to speak. But it's, if you want to use Lasswell Raegen as a chainer, spoiler, don't use them as a finisher. You could use this to have the other unit, Cap, for example. Or, I mean, technically you could use them as a chain builder for, say, Lunar Freya or TeRRa. That works too. But I'd rather use them as a finisher because they are finishing really strong. Okay, so let's check out the Brave Shift abilities. It's more of the same, to be honest. As you can see, the top ability was ice before, is now fire. It's a tag attack as well, and deals some hefty damage. The other one, Father Sun ability, still fire, ice, and peril, 120, still 73x damage. Nothing really changed other than the Grandis and the letter cooldown, right? The Grandis changed for the most part. It now adds fire element. It's a tag attack, does not have the ignore defense stuff anymore. It hits twice instead of that. So one attack at 10x physical fire, the other one at 80x physical fire. Okay, and the other ability, the other cooldown available turn 1 is that they, where is it? Am I blind? Nope, I'm hovering right over it. It's 200 LB increase, not the 250 of other units, but 200 LB increase, still very cool. And yeah, on the passive side of things, the usual. So you still get 100 base LB increase, and yeah, the rest is pretty, they are super easy to get, and you will see this in just a moment. And the limit burst, 145 physical damage, so you are not locked to fire, which is the cool part. They are very flexible on the limit burst, and as you've seen here on the passive or on the active ability side of things, their fire imbue is locked to their Grandis, which has 4 uses per battle. So you don't need it, and that's the good thing about this. It's so much better than, who was the unit I was super... Oh, Near Vision Sora, for example. To get Near Vision Sora 300 attack boost, you have to imbue him by light. I mean, his limit burst is light anyway, but if it weren't, you'd still be kind of locked to light outside of zone shenanigans, because his 300% attack buff is locked to light. So yeah, All in all, Lasswell Raegen, not only are they super flexible regarding their finishing capabilities, they are also very strong in that regard. Okay, let's check out the Trustmaster and Super Trustmaster a little bit more in detail. Again, Trustmaster 30 attack baseline, 30% attack baseline, and additional 40 if you're wearing a sword, or 40 if you're wearing a katana. So all in all, the Trustmaster is pretty decent. As you can see, it has the most commonly used weapons for dual wield units, and it's highly slot efficient. I mean, it's 110 attack percent just if you're wearing the combination of katana and sword. And but you have to keep in mind that this materia fights for slots with killers and LB damage increase. So if you are going for Lasswell Raegen, I would suggest just using the STMR. It has 192 attack, 75% dragon killer physical, and 25 LB damage. To this date, this sword is the second highest when it comes to attack. It's only the Dark Vision sword that has more attack. And I'm strictly speaking about swords that are available right now in the game. It has this weapon, or their STMR, has even higher attack than all great swords and katanas. Killer and the LB damage increase is fairly unique. So all in all, it is a super strong STMR, probably best in slot for a lot of units. Somebody like Sora would also love to use this. So if you're getting two, I would suggest getting two of these weapons. One for Sora, one for them, for example. So yeah, it has also 75% dragon killer, which is really strong, and the closest in comparison is Dark Lord, which is a great sword. It also has 75% dragon killer, less attack, and it has no limit burst damage. That should give you a rough idea how good this weapon actually is. Let's check out their vision card. I also included their animation. I think it looks pretty cute. I like the animation. So again, 40 base attack, 100 base HP level 1, level 10, 90 base attack, 200 base HP, 50 increased equipment attack when dual wielding from level 4 and 7 combined, that is. And at level 10 you get a measly 20% HP. And yeah, as you can see from my notes down below, it is a plain Baird card for limit burst finishers, as it has very low attack. You should rather use, for example, Riku's vision card if you pulled for Riku on the Kingdom Hearts banner. And if you didn't, New Vision Cloud has 100 base attack. Or you might as well use X-Star's vision card for the katanas if you're wearing katanas. There's so much better options. Or Sora if you pulled for Sora, for example. He has more baseline attack percent. He has 100 base attack. He's just a better option, and I don't like this vision card at all. The level 10 passive is an actual insult for a DPS unit. Who needs 20% HP? Please tell me if there's any reason why I would want 20 base or 20% HP on a DPS unit. Go ahead, tell me. I don't see any reason whatsoever to put this card on a DPSer, especially a finisher. So yeah, maybe the only cool thing about this is that anyone can use this vision card because there's literally no restriction. Well, that's the only thing that is actually good about this. Anyways, let's check out build and damage, shall we? So I should mention here that when I did this, the builder was down and I didn't quite get the substitute builder, so the alternative didn't really work. So I only have the average burst damage for his Brave Shift form, but that's the one we are all interested about, right? And as you can see on the top side, Lasswell Raegen are only wearing 2 materias. That is how easy they are to build. With this, they have 300% limit burst damage, they are capped on attack percent, and they are also capped on their true dual wield modifier. I guess that this goes to show how flexible they are as a unit. And you could literally use these 2 slots for whatever you like. I mean, they have already in this build, we are at a 325 Dragon Killer, which is overkill obviously. And we are at 100% human killer already. You could easily cap this with other stuff, right? So these guys, they are strong and they are super flexible. And as you can see, the Brave Shift rotation is a triple cast turn 1. You use the attack and limit burst cooldown if you want to limit burst on turn 2, that is obviously. You also use the Magnus ability for the fire imbue. And you amplify ice and fire by 30%. This assumes that you are using an outside source of fire imperil. You could use New Vision Locker for that, or Seeker of Freedom Van, 130 fire imperil. Off you go. These guys, they will destroy literally everything. And the average burst, if you turn to limit burst, is at 1.9 billion. Please keep in mind, this does not include breaks. This does also not include killers. These are completely left out if you're watching the video or one of my banner reviews for the very first time. I only include things that these units bring by themselves. So what I've calculated here is the 30% fire amp, the fire imbue, the 120 fire and ice imperil, their own limit burst boost 200% and their 300% attack boost. These are the only values I've inserted, and that is the damage that came out. Now, if you were to have a boss or enemy that is, for example, a dragon, and you'd have 85% breaks to defense, this damage would skyrocket, literally skyrocket. But I'm not a huge fan of numbers up in the trillions because they become kind of hard to read. I kept it short, in quotations, and simple at 1.9 billion. That is a number that we all can still somewhat grasp because our current limit is 2.14 billion damage. Okay, the base rotation or the base gear is pretty much the same, but you need another source of what's it called, equipment attack. And that is why I used Guardian of Light Riku for that. It has 100% to all, which is kind of overkill in this build, but it still works. It's all the same. You're still flexible on all the stuff. And regarding your rotation in the base form, it's pretty much the same. Triple cast, turn 1, attack, limit burst cooldown, plus Magnus for the ice imbue and fire ice amp, and fire off your limit burst on turn 2, right? It's literally the same, and the average burst damage should be considerably lower because, as you've seen, the limit burst on their base form is just a 100x and a 24 hit attack, probably with the actual spec of the damage being backloaded, meaning at the very end of it. And as you might know by already, I'm a huge fan of one hit KO, meaning one hit from the finisher and it's done. Units like TeRRa, Tifa, Edgar, or as we can see, Lasswell and Raegen in their Brave Shift form are my favorites. Fire and forget, pretty much. Okay, so one thing to note though, the Dragon Killer might make it into the rotation if you don't have an external Dragon Killer. So for example, for Dark Visions, I'd rather use a Dragon Killer buff than the Imbue, for example. So I wouldn't use the Magnus in the Brave Shift rotation. Because the Fire Imbue can technically be shared by a Mastermind Zone, for example. And as you see, again, I do want to stress they are highly flexible on gearing. It's super easy to gear them and they're very, very versatile in that regard. So if you need more resistances, for example, for Dark Visions boss, absolutely no problem. You do have two free slots for that. Need more killers? Sure, go for it. I mean, the slots are there. Use them. And what I do want to mention here is that last gen has super high burst, but their sustained damage is a little bit on the lower side. Axton Cleome, which we will be getting sometime in February, are 15% higher in that regard. Just keep that in mind. If you're more a fan of more sustained damage is better, technically, for trials especially, but for Dark Visions, you really want the highest burst damage possible, and that is where Lasswell Raegen shine. So how do they fare in the meta? So they have super high burst damage, lower than Edgar, mind you, but they are very easy to gear. They have the currently, please keep that in mind, currently the highest sustained damage. External Cleome power creep that. The 70% damage increase against broken enemies is current broken mechanic, so that does not work. It will work sometime late February again, but the mechanic is not really used after the Bahamut trial. There is Ymir, yes, I know, but Ymir is so trivial, you won't notice the 70% broken damage passive because the boss gets hit like by a truck. And anyway, the Lasswell Raegen have a superb STMR that is pretty much must-have for all the upcoming units. 150% Dragon Killer physical and magic for that matter, for the whole team, 4 turns, 5 turns cooldown. Very strong. I mean, Rain and Fina had the same thing with Beasts, for example, so all these tag units have these 4-turn cooldowns, party buffs for killers. It's very convenient. And also the 30% Fire and Ice Amplify is huge. And what's funny is nobody else from these tag units has 30% Amplify. They all have 15% or 20%, and I don't know why they gave Lasswell Raegen 30%, but I like it. Not gonna lie, I like it. I was going to put for them regardless, and the 30% Amplify is just the icing on the cake here. So the conclusion is, Lasswell Raegen are a super powerful unit that you will use for many Dark Visions burst strats coming. They are less useful for trials that are not dragons, because Axton Cleome, they are better. You have to keep this in mind. They are better because the sustained damage is a lot higher, 15%. I count that as a lot with these numbers we are dealing here, and they might get it done a turn earlier than Lasswell Raegen. So keep that in mind. Okay, that's it for Lasswell Raegen, and now let's take a look at Infernal Fire Rain. He's the next unit we'll be getting, so his base form doesn't really get anything new on the ability side of things. He gets a passive for 500 more static attack, some modifier increases. He also gains 100% passive LB damage, and his LB is now at 120 Fire Apparent for 5 turns and 24x Fire Physical with 50% defense ignore. So nothing to be really ecstatic about. His Brave Shift form makes him a Fire Evoker, much like NEeD TeRRa. And his abilities, they aren't that bad. And I'm kind of regretting not putting up his passives right now, but he gains some decent passives, especially for Evo Magic and Evo Damage, and he is okay. However, you have to keep this in mind. To make Infernal Fire Rain really good, he needs TeRRa's STMRs, and when you're at that point that you need 2 of NeoVision TeRRa's STMRs, you might as well use NeoVision TeRRa. However, Infernal Fire Rain does count as a discount TeRRa. He deals considerably less damage than her, but it still might tip things into your favor, especially when it comes to Dark Vision stages. As you've seen, I've tried to clear mage stages with Infernal Fire Rain, and I will try to do the Monday stages on Dark Visions with Infernal Fire Rain, but I'm kind of doubting that this will work. So yeah, and what I also don't like about his new limit burst, his evoke limit burst, is that it has 24 hits. So it's kind of annoying to fit it into a chaining rotation where you just want to chain, get the chain up to 100 and finish with one hit. That is the huge upside of TeRRa. It's just one hit, fire, forget, done. With Infernal Fire Rain's limit burst, you have to kind of weave it in, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is. Oh, by the way, I should mention his Brave Shift does increase LB damage by 250, as you can see with the ability. Deals fire evoke damage, 80% spirit break, not too shabby for a New Vision Awakened, but 250 LB increase. That is huge. Don't sleep on that. And yeah, I would call him a discount TeRRa, a very discounted TeRRa, so to speak. But he isn't all bad. So that makes the question, should you pull? If you're looking for a super strong finisher for Dark Visions, absolutely. You're going to use Lasswell Raegen for the next few months, I guarantee this, unless we get overpowered Chinese New Year units, that is. That'd be the only exception where Lasswell Raegen would be power crept within a week. But looking at the JP side of things, the power creep has slowed down significantly. So we might actually not see such a huge power creep with the Chinese New Year units, and they might just be another side grade. We'll see next week. Okay, but if you're looking for a high sustained damage unit, wait for Axter and Cleo. Their burst is only slightly weaker than last gen. It's probably something around 5%, and that is very low, all things considered. Last gen is also a superb unit for a 15-turn Bahamut clear, and their 70% break damage increase is superb on paper, but useless most of the time, especially outside of trials. Infernal Fire Rain is a decent discount TeRRa, but keep in mind his damage falls off really quickly without the use of Super Trust Masters, and especially if you're not using 2 TeRRa Super Trust Masters, you might as well just not use him. Unless you have all the other STMRs needed, right? Unaleska, Luna Freya, etc. You might make this work, but keep in mind, without 2 TeRRa STMRs, Infernal Fire Rain's damage falls rapidly. So yeah, the true star of the banner, as you've all expected, is actually Lasswell Raegen, the tag unit, and Infernal Fire Rain New Vision Awaken is a good option. He's not a dud pull. Even though some people want to make it one, he isn't that bad if you have the gear. And that also excludes TeRRa gear. You do not need TeRRa or Neo Vision TeRRa gear to make him somewhat decent. He will get the job done, but he will be exceptionally good with 2 TeRRa STMRs, but at that point again, you might as well just use TeRRa. And that finishes today's banner review. I'm below 30 minutes and I do want to keep this. So thank you all for watching. We'll be seeing each other tomorrow for the second day of Dark Visions. Have a nice evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you're from. I hope this helped. Bye bye.